So this is the first video of a three-series videos on what makes long horizon AI agent actually work. We often hear that the solution is having a bigger context window. But if an agent works for hours and days, the real problem is not simply just to make the context bigger, because at the end of the day, we are dealing with hundreds of actions, hitting errors, discover exceptions, learning about which approach fails, and so on. And eventually, it's not going to fit in that window. So that means that eventually we are dealing with how we want to start compressing and summarizing this. So a summary may remember that, for example, a previous attempt failed, but at the end, it loses the exact reason that why it actually failed. It may drop a sequence of actions, a small observation that becomes very important in future basic failure, and so on. So hours later, a teeny detail may suddenly become critical for the next decision. That's the reason that a real problem is not just compression, it's actually a selection. What should stay detailed, what is become a summary, and what can become, which part we can actually forget. In fact, a recent paper called The Sleeping Agent tried to address that what information deserves to survive. Working memory should contain that what is immediately useful for the current reasoning step. There are some important events that need a separate episodic memory which can point out the original details for specific events and so on, because those events actually cannot be compressed. They have to be more or less stay untouched. In a way, we are talking about two separate types of information. Some can be abstracted and summarized, but some should not be touched. At Brazen Lab, that's something that we are working on, that to more or less figure out that the basically context management is not just how to summarize tokens, rather than having an active reasoning layer that decides what to keep, what to compress, and what to retrieve. So when we are dealing with basically a future decision in agentic memory, we have to ask what losing information may change a future decision. And if the answer is yes, then the system should probably preserve more than just a short summary.